Welcome to Cigar City Radio, episode number 40. I'm your host, Randy Ojeda, and making the magic happen, Mr. Jason Solanes.
Just remember, be sure to come out or if you stay in, I'm staying on.
You know, I'm going to choose to ignore that, Jason, because we are now over the hill. We've hit 40 episodes.
Don't depress me like that.
It's
Randy.
just downhill from here, guys. This is it. This is the peak. Episode 40.
Yeah, the wheels are going to fall off this podcast.
Yeah, if you started from episode 1 and you've gotten to this point, just know this is it. We're going straight down after this.
We're going to get a drum pad and we're going to attach fart noises to it and hammer noises to it and clang noises to it. Wheels are falling off.
Yeah. For more episodes, head to cigarcityradio.com or subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or whatever your favorite podcast app is. Just search for Cigar City Radio. You can also connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and on all those networks, our username is Cigar City Radio. This episode is all about vinyl, records, LPs, EPs. And just last week, Brooklyn's Fruit and Flowers released their debut EP, Drug Tax, with one of the most gorgeous vinyl editions I've ever seen. Seriously, with a beautiful front and back cover and a translucent candy red vinyl. It's a limited pressing that you definitely want to pick up while you can. You can order it today on Bandcamp via Little Dickman Records. We'll be ending this episode with the title track from that EP, so stay tuned to the end for a taste of Fruit and Flowers. Our guests on this episode are Doug and Michelle Allen, owners of Bananas Music, the world's largest collection of vinyl records. They collectively have over 17,000 square feet of space in 2 stores, their vinyl warehouse, and their retail store on 22nd Avenue in St. Petersburg. Bananas Music has even been listed by Rolling Stone as one of the best record stores in the U.S., and it's right in our backyard. And long before we started this podcast, Jason and I used to spend a lot of time hanging out at Bananas Music, roaming those halls, getting lost in the Latin jazz, world music records. I'm talking millions upon millions of vinyl records. And if you love vinyl, it's a place you definitely have to put on your bucket list of shops you need to hit. Make a trip out here to St. Pete and go to Bananas Music. And lots of people do. People plan vacations around coming to this place. So it truly is special.
Bananas Music is celebrating their 40th anniversary this Saturday, July 8th, at their 22nd Avenue store in St. Pete. The event will feature giveaways, free beer and wine, live music, DJs, and some amazing deals on vinyl, CDs, cassettes, and more. You can find out more on their website, musicfinder.com.
Also, how great is it that our 40th episode is the Bananas 40th anniversary episode?
I wasn't expecting that even when we recorded it.
No, I didn't even think about it. It never crossed our minds. Total coincidence, but here it is, episode number 40. We're hanging out here with Doug and Michelle Allen from Bananas Music, the world's largest record store.
Obviously, we have not been to every record store in the world, but we get people from all over the world. And so people come in and they tell us, I travel a lot, I've been to a lot of record stores, and I have never been to a record store of this size.
Yeah.
Now, building-wise, probably not the biggest. Inventory-wise, the biggest.
Yeah, you were just telling us that, you know, we're looking around, there's probably, a couple million records here.
In this building, I'm not sure. At the other one, I'm pretty sure we're somewhere between 3 and 4 million.
And you have even more in storage, you were saying?
At least as much in storage as we have out.
That's incredible.
There's another store that has most of the records, and then there's a storage warehouse that's about 8,000 square feet. And then there's another warehouse across town that has stuff in it that we haven't seen in about 20 years.
What are you going to find in there?
We don't know. We don't know. When you put stuff away like that because there isn't room in the store, you're you're taking things out of it that you think will sell right away, and you're deferring certain things. Sometimes it just never came back out again. Just more stuff.
Well, the
coming in.
intent is not to leave it there very long.
Sure.
But then time clicks on and you forget that you have it there. And so then you suddenly realize that what started out as like 5 boxes is now 250 boxes, and
Yeah.
because you just
Yeah.
keep piling it in there. So
Some of the things are not probably good anymore, but some things are probably great.
Yeah.
We'll find out when we open up the warehouse.
one day you'll find out.
Yeah.
It's awesome to see how long you've been part of the community and working here at Bananas Music. It was the late 70s that you started?
77 was when we started, April 77. So our actually 40th anniversary is in April this
wow.
year. But because of Record Store Day, we can't do anything else big party-wise. So we have an anniversary date set, July 8th, to celebrate the 40th
40
anniversary. And that'll be here on Doug's 70th birthday.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely have to come out for that. That's
it'll be
awesome.
fun. We're gonna have, like we have. Today I got Jethro Tull tickets to give away, and stuff
Cool.
like that. So there'll be, we'll have a couple of local bands playing, and we've been giving away something called Banana Bucks, and so we started on Record Store Day. So if you buy so much money, you get this banana bucks. It might be $5 banana buck, $10 banana buck, and then you get to use it on that day. So we had one fella that came from, I think he was from Virginia, on Record Store Day, and he spent about $1,000. He came and he said, "Oh, I'll definitely be back for the anniversary sale." He says, "I got to use my banana bucks," and I'm thinking, "You're going to come all the way down here just to use like $50 for the banana buck?" He says, "No, I have $250 worth of banana bucks."
So joke's on you then.
So he says, "I will be back." And I thought, great. That was the whole point.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah.
And that's what's amazing is, people really do come from all over to see, this collection and purchase from your store.
They
And-
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
people set their vacations around
Yeah,
it sometimes.
they do.
Yeah, record collectors do, not everybody.
Yeah.
Not everybody,
obviously.
record collectors. Yeah.
And I think what's cool too is like now, everybody talks about kind of this vinyl resurgence where records are starting to, I guess the records have been mainstream again for a while, but this is something from the very beginning. You've been all about the records. Like you didn't let CDs or anything deter.
Well,
I mean, you have
Not-
CDs
oh, yeah.
obviously, but it's always been about the records.
We stuck with them when everybody else didn't. And,
Well, that's where we got the big, massive part of our collection was in the CD era. A lot of stores stopped buying vinyl because they thought no one would buy it.
yeah.
We always had an international presence. Even in snail mail days, we were sending tons of records to Europe, England and Germany and wherever. And so they didn't abandon vinyl format like they did here in the States.
Right.
And never did. So we were doing a lot of international mail order, but we were getting most of the collections because we were the only store really buying up everything that came our way still. As long as we had capital to do so, we would do it.
Yeah.
And so we got a lot of inventory in the 80s.
that's why the warehouses are filled with boxes of
Of vinyls.
that just
Yeah.
didn't fit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that really helped us along. Plus, we had a database way early. We had bought a computer, like in, I don't know, what was it?
86.
86. Bought it from Sears, who didn't even sell computers, but they started by Epson, who didn't make computers. They were a printer company. It was like a monochrome with it was a 8 megahertz speed computer, and it had a turbo button that you could make it run at 12. It was, it was really, it was like one
turbo boost.
software, monochrome monitor, the whole bit. But it allowed us to start building that database of archives that we put on our website eventually. And,
Yeah.
and that really helped too.
No, that's very forward.
we were kind of pioneers in our day, I
Yeah,
guess.
by the
I
time
don't
the
know.
internet came around, we had a database
Yeah,
of
we
like
were set.
70,000 pieces, and we found a site that didn't charge you until you sold it. So, I mean, suddenly we were selling. I think within 2 or 3 weeks we were selling things in Estonia. So,
Yeah, pretty
it,
much.
it kept us alive when 8,000 stores closed.
Yeah.
So
Well, this is back when there was just what they used to call them bulletin boards.
Bulletin boards.
It was before the internet. There was, you could,
that's before he was born.
yeah, it was
Maybe.
before you were born. It wasn't really the internet, but it was a way you could go on and you could look at other people's postings, and they were called bulletin boards. It's very, very early days.
So you would post
You would post
your
things on these
availability
bulletin
yeah.
boards. It was weird, yeah. Yeah.
That is
So,
weird.
Yeah.
And now the information's just everywhere, you know?
Oh, it's a snap decision. I mean, literally, someone would send us a piece of mail, and on this piece of mail, it would say, "I'm looking for these 5 records." Okay, it might come from England. And then you would go and you would look for these 5 things, and then you would write it all out as to what it was, the condition, the price, and then you would mail it back to them. So now we're already 2 weeks into this thing, right? And then they would decide when they got it if they wanted anything, and they would send you a money order. And so now it's another week for it to come back.
Wow.
This is how it used to be. And then we would ship the product to them. So when you were all said and done, it could be a month to 2 months before they ever got their product. Now, they just, they pick it off your list, they buy it, they pay it with PayPal or whatever. I ship it the same day, they get it in a week.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
In Estonia.
Anywhere.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
we've sent to the Falkland Islands. We've sent everywhere. I mean,
Wow.
I can't, China's probably the only place that is the most infrequent place but I have sent to China as well, so. Yeah.
Now, I've always been curious because, we've been coming to this store for 10 years, 12 years, something like that. And it always surprises me how it's surprisingly organized for such a large collection. How much time do you guys spend actually?
10 hours a day.
10 hours a day?
Every day.
Yeah,
all
every
day
day, all day long. I mean, it's very important to do that because you don't want to waste a lot of time looking for things.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, some record collectors love that aspect
Well,
of it,
The digging, yeah.
They like
That's
the
what the budget
digging.
room's about.
They like the digging because they feel like they can find surprise things that they weren't looking for.
Sure.
But on our end, if it's not really organized, it just takes too long.
Yeah.
To find anything. I mean, we get people on the phone, they go, "Well, do you have this?" You go, "Well, let me go check. I'll be right back." We can't be right back in a half hour if you got to go through, you know what I mean?
Every single box.
Yeah,
of
you have to
records,
be able to go right to it and see what you have. So, yeah, we constant.
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine that'd be one of the biggest parts of the job is keeping inventory and keeping everything organized.
It is, and we've been to a lot of stores, around the country and in England and different places, and we're pretty organized.
Yeah, no, very
Comparatively.
very organized.
Yeah, so, yeah.
And even the warehouse location,
Yeah.
for such a large store, like you have, it feels like a library. You walk in and there's a categorized system of where to find what you're looking for.
And we get compared a lot to Amoeba. That's the store we get compared a lot to. We even have a customer her boyfriend mother lives here, so they come here all the time. But she works for Amoeba. I think she works in the Hollywood one. She wears our T-shirt to work. She just loves our store.
Yeah.
But the difference is that they're mostly new.
goes that job.
I know. They're mostly new. And they also have browser bins.
Okay.
Where if I had browser bins for my stock over there, we'd have to have a 50,000 square foot building. I mean, to do everything like this rather than, and it is a pain. I'll be the first one to admit it's a pain, to be looking at records like that. But that's the only way we have to do it because of the space that
It was
we have.
originally designed as a mail order operation, so it was for us as much as the customers, so that we could get a lot of records well organized, and we could just walk right to it and find something for somebody. And that's worked out rather well. But a couple of the complaints were, a little too much stuff. I never understood that complaint.
One complaint was we had too much
that's-
stuff and that they were
And
overwhelmed.
a couple of overweight people had trouble with the aisles.
Yeah, sure.
But that's the biggest part of, it's a good half of our business is mail order. So, it gives us the ability to carry way more records than a regular store would.
Yeah. Yeah. And my favorite part of the warehouse is always going downstairs to where it feels like sort of a mad scientist laboratory of records.
It is.
That's where I've found some of the best stuff.
Yeah.
We have some bad habits.
Yeah. It's not very organized downstairs.
No, not downstairs. Yeah. Yeah. That's where you find some gems for sure.
There is some great stuff down there, but I mean, just today I was down there this morning looking for something in the vocal room, and I found a Tom Lehrer. He's not vocal; it's comedy. And I found a Mamas and Papas album. So, people, we find stuff just stuck everywhere.
Yeah.
People change their minds. So that's
true.
part of that organization thing again.
Sometimes people pull things and planning on buying them, they put them down somewhere in the store and they never find them again.
Yeah.
Yeah. That could happen
happens
too.
too. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
That's amazing. And but you still have a significant number of mail orders too, right? I mean,
More than 50% of our business is still international mail.
Well, in that location.
At that location.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And this
Oh, yeah.
this location's been around. I know it's been around a while, but it was
8 years. I think we're in our 8th year.
So relatively new.
Yeah, we've moved about 4 times, I guess, since the beginning. And most of it was because we needed more space. We would get larger and larger. The first place we were at in Central, we were there 12 years. And so we would get these little 500 square foot, and we'd knock the world down until we'd get the next one until we had 5 of them. And then we ended up moving all together because there was no more space. And then we decided after we were in business about, 30 years? Yeah, about 30 years. We don't really want to work as much as we were working. Even to this day, Doug and I still work 10 hours minimum a day.
Yeah, you were just saying you already drove from Tampa and
Yeah.
back,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah. So we decided we wanted to do just mail order. We could do just mail order, and we could just work pretty much whenever we wanted. It would be really nice, right?
Yeah.
Literally, we could not get customers to stop coming.
Wow.
They'd come and they'd knock on the door, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So during the economic downturn is when we actually opened the store, which was 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And Doug, this became available, and Doug comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, that store is available." He says, I think we should look at that and take it. And I looked at him and I thought, you are nuts. You're nuts. I mean, people are closing their doors.
Yeah.
We'd be lucky to stay alive, if we're, really keep ahead of ourselves. Because the one thing that we're very good at is we're very good at reinventing ourselves. So, as format changes through the years and big box stores coming in and stealing your business and yada, yada, yada. So we're very good at staying ahead of the game. So anyway, I called my accountant and I said, you are going to think we are out of our minds, during this time period that we're going to open a new store. And he said, well, you have the inventory.
Yeah, you
So we
definitely
did.
do.
And it's been a really good choice. So needless to say, we're not working less.
Well,
Yeah.
the other store was somewhat invisible on 16th Avenue. You are not going to be driving down the street and go, oh, a record store. You have
Right.
to be going
Right.
there.
Mm-hmm.
So when we reopened here, people were commenting, we're glad to see you back in business. Now, we never were out. We
Yeah.
were in the phone book. We're, had the same phone number for 35 years or something like that. But that location was designed to be mail order. And then when we opened this, people were glad to see us back in regular retail. But the regular collectors, including the foreigners, never had any trouble finding us. They'd hop in a cab and say, take us to Bananas.
Yeah.
And we'd go.
Oh yeah, we would make day trips out to Bananas where we'd drive over from Tampa and just hang out for 4 or 5 hours, looking around and buying a ton of records.
Our philosophy was always that we had broader tastes in music, and we thought other people also did. It wasn't just rock and roll, which is still my favorite, but there's stuff in there that you won't find in anybody else's store ever.
Yeah, my family's Cuban, so I always look for interesting like Cuban and Afro-Cuban records, and
Yeah,
I think
that's
I found most of them at Bananas. Yeah.
There is a map. There's 2 maps, actually. What was the first one? Was it the Japanese used
Oh.
to say that they had a map for record collectors. And on this map, you had stores in, London and Paris and New York and Los Angeles and St. Petersburg, Florida. And then just recently, somebody somewhere, I forgot, said they saw, it was a customer, said he was, I think in France or one of those places again that said if you are a serious record collector and you ever get to the States, you have to go to Bananas Records. So that was nice. I mean, I love those
Yeah.
plugs. It was nice. Who doesn't like free plugs? So.
Yeah. And so what do you think is the biggest change in records in the last, 30 years?
The price.
The price. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing about the new vinyl. We think it's extremely overpriced. I think it's overpriced because the industry is saying, I can.
Yeah.
So
It's,
I will.
it's supply and demand, I
That's
guess.
right.
Yeah.
If you are after a Eagles album and the original's like $7.99, why would you pay $25 for a 180 gram
Yeah.
copy? I don't understand it. The other thing that I don't like about the new wave of vinyl is that it might be on vinyl, but it's not necessarily analog.
Yeah.
It's just a format choice. So I encourage people to read the liner notes and figure out how this item was recorded. Early albums are analog. totally different sound. If you buy a digital piece on vinyl as your format choice, it could be the same as listening to a compact disc. So a lot of people don't realize that. It is not different. It's just a different format.
Yeah.
So I don't like that part of it. I think it's easy for the industry to do it digitally, and then they charge you for it. And I don't like that. That's the thing that bothers me the most about the new vinyl.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I'm a little bothered by all the reissues, and like all the bigger labels are coming out with these reissues for records. And there's only so many record pressing plants that it forces the smaller independent labels to like sit on, you know, 3-4 months on a waiting list to get their records printed.
But the accessibility of a lot of good titles is not there, so people are kind of forced to buy those reissues.
That's also true.
That is true.
They can't get really decent copies of Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd, and they're expensive.
Yeah.
So,
but your point is good, because there's a lot of things we see that are coming out as reissues, might be Psych Records or something like that, that they don't make it on their release date because they do take that backseat to some of the other
some of the bigger
labels. Things that are being come out. So
and that's exactly what drives the price up of everything, you know, because there's only so many records getting made. So yeah.
They must be making more pressing plants.
I would hope so. I mean, if I had the capital, that's what I'd invest in as a record plant.
I think they bought some of the equipment back from South America and stuff. You know, it had all gotten sold into third world countries, and then they go down and rebuy it and put it back in use.
Yeah, there was one in Germany, I think, that they said that they had. Did you read that article? Where they had all that old equipment. They showed pictures of this really antiquated looking things, but they put it all back together again.
Random question. You mentioned price. What's the most expensive vinyl record you have in stock right now?
You know, I don't know. We just sold an album for $1,500. It was a jazz guy. I can't even tell you who it was.
Is that the Sun Ra one?
No, the Sun Ra one we got $750 for. This was a jazz. It was on Prestige label. I don't think he did a lot of records, but we just sold that one for $1,500. Other than that, I don't know. Wow. I really don't know.
When we started in the 70s, the new price of records was like $8.98.
Okay.
And our price was $3.95 or 3 for $10. But I'd say 40 years later, 60-70% of the store is still under $5.
Yeah,
so not a lot of changes in the regular records.
In like the used vinyl.
Yeah, $2.99 to $4.99 is pretty standard.
And the internet's taken some of the expensive things and lowered the price because of the accessibility and the obvious. I mean, when you used to come into our store, if you had a record that you hadn't seen in years, you know, you price it based on that kind of thing. And it's a mint copy. Now you go on the internet and there's 70 copies available in all kinds of conditions and all kinds of prices. So the competition, there's still some stuff that brings real money. So, but it's usually limited pressings.
Yeah,
you know, things that are obscure, things that weren't readily available in their day and have become popular later.
Yeah. Is there a particular genre that's more
jazz? Probably.
I would imagine
jazz is probably the biggest on certain labels.
Yeah, for collectors. I would say.
A rock album might sell 100,000 or 1 million records, and a jazz album, a good sale might be 10,000. So how many are surviving from 1958?
Yeah,
well, and also, if you think about the kind of equipment that those got played on, it wasn't the best equipment. I mean, we grew up in an era where your turntable was one of those changers, and so you'd stack it up, and then, you know, it would automatically reject, and the record would drop down, and the needle, nobody ever changed their needles. Horrible.
Yeah, that could do some damage to the record.
Well, I mean, and those, you can tell because a lot of those records, when you start playing them, the lead-in track on is the noisiest always because of the way it slaps down and the arm comes over and clinks down on it, and it was just not very good stuff back then. I mean, people had really good equipment, but it was very expensive. I mean, they've been making Marantz stuff since the 50s. Very expensive. It was like $2,500, $3,000 at the time.
Sure.
Yeah. So
accessibility to the equipment, though, has changed. You can go on Amazon and put in turntables, and you've got 200 pages of available material.
Yeah, you can get a turntable for under $100.
You
Mostly
can.
from China.
Yeah. Almost always from China. You know, the funny thing is, even Audio-Technica, which is a Japanese company, theirs are made in China now.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, you know, it's a bottom line.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we don't like to say really much negative about anything, but I will say we've never wanted to sell those Crosleys, right? Just horrible stuff. And people kept pressuring us. Why aren't you stocking these? Why aren't you stocking these? So finally I said, okay. So I ordered like 10 of them. I got 4 back immediately.
Wow.
It
And I
didn't work
thought,
out of the box.
I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it. And that new vinyl that we talked about will not play on Crosley's. So they hop and skip. They're too heavy for those platters. So when people bring back a piece of new vinyl and they say, oh, this thing skips, very first question, what are you playing it on? And they
Yeah.
go, Crosley. Okay, this is your problem. And we'll
Yeah.
put it on our turntable and it'll play perfectly. And, so we try to, educate people that, especially if you're first starting out, save a little longer, just a little longer, and buy we can get you going with a system for pretty inexpensive that you'll be happy with in the long run.
It'll sound
It'll sound
10
much
times
better.
better than some of the Chinese stuff.
So, because people they come in, they want to start right away, and they don't have anything. They have, they come in, they want to buy a turntable. I'll say, well, what kind of amplifier do you have? I don't know what that is. Well, do you have speakers? Oh, you have to have speakers? Yeah, they think you can just plug
Plug it
in the
in.
turntable and
Yeah.
then it works.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to, you have to educate, especially people who didn't grow up in that era. So they see them at, Targets or the big box stores, and they just want to buy them because they're cute or pretty or whatever, and they're set to go. But they're horrible. I mean, they don't play well. They don't sound good. They don't, last.
But we do demonstrations all the time of what the record should sound like. Because if they buy, paying $30 for a record and $50 for your sound system, that's just wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
we
definitely
got-
something wrong there.
We got customers that spent $80,000 on their turntable, and that's wrong too.
That's wrong too.
Yeah. I mean,
it's not getting
unless you're
you.
really into it, I guess, really into the tinkering.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well,
what
we
you get
had
for
we had a
sound.
German customer that said he had a turntable that ran on compressed air,
What?
and the generator was so loud he had to have it installed on the outside of his house.
He said it was not a wife-friendly piece of equipment.
Right. Yeah.
I wouldn't say so.
Yeah. So, people are really into it.
Yeah.
Mean, we get some people come in and they're more into the technical aspect than they are the music.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of audiophiles that are like that.
Yeah.
you know?
They know way too much.
Yeah.
I mean, way too much for their own good. I think anyway.
A lot of information on the internet now about the best sounding quality of different pressings and stuff. That's something that you couldn't have gotten 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. A lot of people coming in with like their Discog accounts.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that is important to those people who have that kind of hearing. I don't, but everything sounds pretty good to me.
The thing about Discogs, though, and we sell a ton of stuff on Discogs, is that it's good and bad for the industry because everybody looks it up. Everybody's got their app, so everybody looks it up. But it's also good because that's bad for record stores that want to, just kind of pick a price. But it's also good because it does make you be more in line with what the actual market will bring for those things. So it's brought a lot of our prices down, but it's also brought some things up that we had no idea.
Yeah.
So
But it definitely levels the playing field.
it very
think it
much
does.
so. I
Yeah,
think
sure.
so too. Yeah, and it is the go-to site because
Absolutely.
there are other places to look, but eBay, that's not a market value, that's an auction site. So
Yeah.
it's not a good place to really monitor what it's worth.
Things sell for $2 one day and $200 the next.
Yeah,
you can't
you
get
can't
any
really-
sense out of
Can't-
that. But
Yeah.
No.
But yeah, that's what I think the benefit to Discogs is that it does give you a pretty good baseline of what you think your collection might be worth,
The biggest fault that I have with anything, whether it be a price guide or a website or whatever, is all people do when they're trying to sell you records is they zero in on the price, right? And they'll say, "Well, I saw a copy of this on eBay for $40," and I'll give you a good example of that. So this lady drives up from Lakeland. She doesn't call, nothing. She just shows up. She has one record to sell from Lakeland, and it's a Broadway version of My Fair Lady. And I said to her, "I'm very sorry, but this is not something that we're interested in buying." And she said, "Well, I saw this on eBay for $40. I said, "I don't doubt you. Just because someone has it listed for $40 doesn't mean it's ever going to sell.
Yeah.
Truly, come upstairs and you can have your pick of about 100 of these for $2.
Yeah.
I mean, really." And she was angry with me. But I mean, you can't win that game. I mean,
Right.
so they don't realize that the price is based on the issue, first pressing, second pressing, reissue, whether it's near mint, sealed, trashed. It varies across the board. They just zero in on the price. See?
Yeah.
It's very difficult to buy records if people have looked them all up and said, well, I've seen it for this. And you can tell they have these little tags on there that say, this one's $20 and this one's $15 and this one. And then you say to them, I'm sorry, we don't buy records like that. You can't. In the first place, we buy 1,000 records a day.
Yeah.
So it's just, you just can't do it. And so, trying to educate people to that respect of the business too, is that it's all based, it's just like buying stamps or toys or whatever it is.
Yeah. I had a friend that used to run a baseball card shop, and
Same
it was the
thing.
same kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
thing. Like they'd buy a massive collection, and there might be a couple diamonds in the rough that they can mark
Right.
up and make their
But the
money
rest
back
of them are a
on.
dime a dozen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it is good for people to protect themselves, to take a look and see if they have something that is that, they want to know.
Yeah. And then you get those people that have been watching too much Pawn Stars and stuff and try to come in here and sell you some mint thing.
I bet you half the stuff on Pawn Stores don't really ever sell.
No, probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
So I mean, if we sold everything we ever bought, oh man, we could travel the world 100 times over.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work like that in real life. It just doesn't.
Yeah, once again, that's where that stuff in the warehouse appeared.
Yeah.
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 Man, you should call Pawn Stars, have them just go through the warehouse. You never know.
Well, yeah. Well, did you see the guy? He owns a recycling business in Brazil. Did you read that one?
No.
He wants to own a copy of every piece of music that's ever been made. And I said,
Good
well,
luck
how
with
would
that.
but how would you know that you had them all? You could never know that.
Yeah.
But they showed a picture of him, and he had staff all sorting records, and they were in these giant dumpsters. I mean, and they were filled to the top, giant. You'd have to get a ladder to climb into these things, and they were just sorting through all these records. But that's, he's a mega millionaire, and that's his
That's his goal.
hobby.
That's
right
probably
now.
what I would spend my money on if I was a mega multimillionaire. Yeah. I'd probably buy too many records too. So I get that.
Yeah. Well,
That's what we said. If we ever sold the store, we'd just start over again.
yeah. It'd be easy to do.
Yeah.
It-
Well, I mean, I can tell you guys have a passion for this. I mean, you don't do this for 40 years and not enjoy it. you
Well,
know?
it's
Better than real work.
It's better than real work. And, it's funny because we both had professional jobs. And so when we just said, he's not a real good employee, I'll give him that, for other people. He's a great self-employed person, but he doesn't like working for other people. But, it's different when you own your own business. I mean, you're the one that makes it work. And
Yeah.
so, if you don't do a good job, then the whole thing suffers. And so we're very good at what we do, but we're very serious about it. And it's a business, and, we have 12 employees. So, we have to make it do good,
Yeah.
so that they can do good. So, it all goes together. But 50% of all businesses fail. So to be around for 40 years, then we obviously did something right.
I'd say a few things.
A few things, but I mean, we made our share of mistakes, I'm sure, along the lines, but we made enough good decisions to kind of let it go forward. And it's an ever-changing industry, so it can be a very tough business at the same time. And, we've had some pretty lean years
Yeah, I can imagine.
over the years, but, you don't base anything on a day or two. You base it on, just a long-term thing. And if everything seems to be going swimmingly, you stay the course, and you don't take too much out of it. When you're building your business, you have to put a lot into it. You can't take out.
Yeah.
So
Mostly
yeah.
time.
Mostly time.
And
exactly.
hard work.
And energy, yeah.
Yeah, and energy. And like I said, he's a madman. He just keeps going and going and going and going. He's like a little Energizer bunny.
She's been telling me to be careful buying records for 20 years.
Well, it's funny because it's hard to resist because we've gone into collections. Well, let's tell them our favorite one. So we went to Tampa. It was a man who lived in this house with a detached garage, had no furniture. All he had was shelves on the wall, all the way around, every wall, bathroom, everywhere. And it was all Dixieland jazz records, right? Well, jazz records sell great. Dixieland, not so much. So 60,000? 60,000 albums.
I don't think we ever really knew how many were there because it was 2 buildings altogether.
Yeah, 60,000 albums. And so we walked in and we realized it was all Dixieland jazz. And I said to him, we're not buying these because it's just work. At the end of the day, it's just
Yeah,
work
yeah.
and we're not buying them. So he says, well, how about if we make him a really low offer? And I said, we're not buying these. It's just, too much work. So there's another man there looking, and Doug ended up making an offer. He only offered him like $2,000 for this 60,000 records. It's nothing, right? Well, so the
Sometimes that helps you make the decision. If they say no, you don't have to do it.
That's right. And so the other man that was there offered them $2,500. And so he got the records, and I'm like, oh, thank God. So about 8 years later, we get this phone call. And this guy calls, and he says, remember those Dixieland jazz records over in Tampa? He said, I'm the guy that bought those. Well, he thought he was going to put them all on eBay and make a fortune. And he put them in storage and paid $18,000 in storage fees. Never sold any records.
It just didn't sell.
Didn't sell. Yeah. Right. And so, you have to know what your market is.
Yeah, you got to be smart.
Right. But I mean, we've been in houses where, they were stacked floor to ceiling, or there were little paths, and stuff like that, and pretty interesting places. And it's amazing how much stuff people can collect. We did one years ago now where the guy lived with his mother, and he only bought soundtracks, and it was on DVDs, CDs, record albums, Laserdisc. He took all the dishes out of the kitchen, and the cabinets were full of like DVDs and stuff, all sealed. Never opened any of them.
There are people worse than me.
Yeah, there are people worse than you. All sealed, never opened. He probably spent $50,000 on a credit card to buy all this stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, that's amazing.
No, that's...
People do.
He cried when we took those out.
He did cry.
Oh,
I felt
man.
bad, but his mother was quite relieved. So
Isn't that a nice story?
Yeah. Makes you think.
Yeah. So anyway.
So Bananas Music, 40 years, the 40-year anniversary is coming up, the unofficial 40th anniversary, right? So what's on the horizon after that? Another 40 years of Bananas Music?
Well, not with us, obviously.
Our son's here now.
Our son's here. He's very interested. He loves the business, but he's from a baby. He's 38, so from a baby he's been involved.
He was in a crib in the first store.
He was in the first store.
Wow.
Our daughter's not as interested, but I think she could be. Her husband is, and they live in Austin, Texas. Music.
Oh yeah, we were just there. Yeah.
Great music stuff, and she's been there 9 years, but they're really tired of it. It's very busy, and traffic is horrendous and stuff. So she's kind of over living there. So we're really working hard on getting them to move back to join the business, so that we can take more time off and they can kind of help take over. All of our employees are terrific, though. We have the best staff, so we don't really worry. We go off and we check in,
and then we can travel and look for records.
Yeah, but I outside of it, it is kind of it's a family business in the respect that Doug and I are here and we're hands on, but we couldn't do it without having terrific people working for us. So we don't really worry too much. So it doesn't really matter whether our kids are on board or not. We always feel like we have somebody that, watches the store and treats it like it's their own, when we're not around. So we're hoping, though, that I think my son will probably carry it on. And whether he's going to be as good a business person as we are, that'll be yet to be seen. But he seems to be. Mm-hmm. And he's really good at it. And so I feel lucky in that respect.
Yeah.
It'll probably carry on in some form.
It'll carry on.
I think so. It's like you said, you're great at reinventing yourselves and finding, new niches within the market.
Well, you have to be. That's the only way to really survive. So, and this area has a lot of great record stores.
It's
surprisingly.
When you think about,
I think there are 14 in Pinellas County now.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, when you think about the Tri-City area really being about 3 million people, there's a lot of record stores here, and they all really thrive. And we have a really good working relationship with everybody. It's the ultimate goal is that people get what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And so, I'll call Daddy Cools and say, hey, do you have this record? Because I don't have it, or, whatever. I did that the other day. Customer bought something from me that was a record store day thing from a couple years ago, and it was defective. And we looked on Discogs to see if we could find another one. And Daddy Cools had one listed. So I called Manny and I said, hey, you got this? It says you do on Discogs. Customer wants to buy it. He goes, okay, I'll hold it.
Yeah.
It's a great working relationship.
Yeah. And all the stores cater to pretty different markets.
Sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The guys at Mojo love them. Really, really nice people. Danny's a wonderful guy. So, yeah.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, we're pretty much out of time, but I just
Okay.
wanted to ask any final words of wisdom for either record collectors or anybody that maybe wants to open a record store?
Bring all your records here if you have them to sell. Yes.
Yeah, don't sell them to anybody
Yeah,
else.
sure.
If you're looking to get into the business, it does take capital and it takes a lot of hours. So be prepared for one thing. And the second thing is if you're going to be a store owner, you can't hoard it all for yourself. You've got to leave the gems for the customers.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You can't fall in love with it.
Can't fall in love with your stock.
Yeah,
Got to be willing to sell it.
that's
Yeah.
a really good word of wisdom for any business owner.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So increasingly for music lovers, I mean, obviously the digital age is here and people are all about it. There's a massive difference that I'm finding with people loving a physical record and opening Spotify. Like personally, when I look at some of my records, I get butterflies because I literally love my records. I have never opened Spotify and thought, I really love this
Digital format.
digital thing that I'm looking at, you know? So in that regards, I'm going to throw a sales pitch for why people in the digital age should love records a little more. And I'd like to hear what you guys would say as a sales pitch for it, or like a slogan for it. So mine would be, learn to physically love your music.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one.
Well,
I'm
people,
thinking-
the experience of a record when you bought it was about opening it up, reading liner notes. And I know there's liner notes on CDs, but the artwork is not there in a form that's enjoyable.
Well, my thing that I always said to people was, look, people always bought in the CD era. They bought CDs, but they didn't fall in love with their CDs. People who have vast record collections love their records. Yeah. They love their records. They handle them carefully. They, work on them. They read them. Whatever. CDs, they don't even put them back in the case.
There is something about the physical item that
Absolutely. And
really appeals to people.
it seems to me like a big part of it is that back in the day, you had a big amp, you had a record player, you had your speakers, and you had your record collection. So your music literally took up a physical presence in your room.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays, there are headphones that literally just stick in your ear with no wires and your phone that connects to it. And it takes up no physical presence. You don't have physical commitment. You could break your phone and your headphones and buy new ones and have all your stuff right back to where you had it.
Yeah.
But your record collection, if you lose one record, you might not be able to replace it. So you have a real love for these things. And it seems like the more and more we condense our music, both digitally and physically, the more we lose a literal love for our music.
I would say to people, give yourself a chance to listen to both formats and make your choice which is best for you, and learn the difference between the high fidelity of a record and how warm it sounds and real it sounds compared to the loudness of a digital format and how far away and tin canny it can sound. And it's vastly different. I think most people don't give themselves the opportunity to listen to both and discover the difference between the sound, because people say, I don't hear it. Okay, that's because you're not listening to both formats. You're just listening to one side by side to figure out what we're talking about. There is a true difference in sound.
But there's
quality.
also a thing about the selection of available music. Now, what do we?
Well, only
last heard?
5% of the music catalog ever made it to compact disc.
And less than 10% is available as a download. So there's all that music. Some of it's dreck, but there's an awful lot of things out there that the industry doesn't see as a viable economic thing, and yet the music's great. So record collecting has that part of it, that you're going to discover great sounds.
I mean, even to this day, 40 years later, I put a Beatles album on the turntable and I had the headphones on and I was just testing it for quality. And my son looked at me and I looked at him and I said, this is awesome. It was so good, you know? And it was a Beatle album that I've probably listened to 100 times. It was still fantastic. And it was on vinyl. So
It's hard to get bored of it when it's not
absolutely.
boring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
As promised, here's Drug Tax by Fruit and Flowers from the EP Drug Tax, out now on Little Dickman Records.